The Galactic Council had not gathered like this in centuries. Inside a vast chamber shaped like a silver dome, representatives from every advanced species in the galaxy sat in rows, silent and watchful. Creatures of all shapes and colors stared toward the center, where a floating puzzle device spun slowly in midair, casting soft blue light across the room. This was not an ordinary meeting. Today was the test. A challenge created to measure the worth of any rising civilization. No race had passed it. Most didn't try twice. In the middle of the room, far smaller than the towering aliens around him, stood a young boy from Earth. His name was Eli. He was 12 years old, had messy brown hair, and wore a simple black suit too big for his thin frame. His shoes tapped lightly against the crystal floor as he stepped forward. Behind him stood Earth's representatives, tense but silent. They knew Eli was not just any child. He saw the world differently. He noticed what others missed. The alien council members whispered to one another. "They sent a child?" asked a long-necked being from the crave system. A spider-like diplomat from the cold moons of Veth laughed. Perhaps they misunderstood. "The invitation!" it hissed. A few grinned, others shook their heads. It was unthinkable. Humans were barely seen as equal members of the galaxy. This boy seemed like a joke, but Eli didn't seem to hear them. His eyes focused only on the puzzle device floating ahead. It was a cube, yet it spun in impossible ways, unfolding and folding again, each time revealing new symbols. The symbols glowed, sometimes bright red, other times soft green. No one had ever solved it. Many had failed. One delegate from a powerful planet had touched it and disappeared without a trace. Eli stood still, observing, not moving, not touching, just watching. The lead council speaker, a tall silver creature with no mouth and 4 glowing eyes, spoke through a translator. "You understand the rules. You may interact with the device, solve it, and your world shall earn the respect of this council. Fail, and Earth returns home empty." Eli nodded once. He walked slowly toward the device, keeping his hands by his sides. The room grew quiet. Cameras floated overhead, sending the event to billions watching across the stars. Back on Earth, entire cities had stopped to watch the broadcast. People in schools, homes, and space stations stared at screens, breath held. A child now stood between their world and the stars. He stopped a few steps away from the cube. It pulsed, softly, waiting. Eli tilted his head and looked at it carefully, then at the symbols flashing across its surface. He didn't move closer. He didn't ask for help. Instead, he started to speak, not to the device, but to the council. "This isn't a puzzle," he said softly, but clearly. "It's a message." The room stirred. A few leaned forward. Others frowned. Eli raised his eyes to meet theirs. "This isn't about logic or numbers. It's about fear." Now the room changed. No one laughed. No one spoke. The boy had seen something they hadn't expected. Even the oldest members of the council looked at each other, uncertain. He continued, "Every symbol here is a reaction. It doesn't wait for an answer. It tests your behavior. The more nervous you get, the more complex it becomes. The faster you guess, the faster it changes. It doesn't want a solution. It wants obedience." Gasps echoed through the hall. One alien slowly turned to its neighbor and whispered, "He's not playing the game. He's questioning the game itself." Eli's fingers twitched at his side, but he didn't reach out. He wasn't ready yet. Instead, he took a deep breath and said, "This puzzle is not unsolvable. It was never meant to be solved. It was built to watch you try. The real test is, who dares to stop playing?" The lead council member stood, glowing eyes pulsing brighter. "What are you suggesting, human child?" Eli looked up, calm and steady. "I'm saying this isn't a test of intelligence. It's a test of control. You created this to see who obeys without thinking. But the ones who question it, those are the ones who truly see." Silence fell again. This time, it was heavy. Somewhere in the shadows, a quiet voice from a hidden species murmured, "He sees the machine, but also what it hides." Back on Earth, people leaned closer to their screens. The boy had not touched the cube. Yet he had said more in 5 minutes than all the experts combined. His voice was calm, his gaze sharp. He wasn't frightened. He was curious, and that made the council nervous. Eli turned to face the audience. "If Earth loses today, that's fine. But remember this. Solving your puzzle doesn't prove intelligence. Seeing through your intentions does." The puzzle flickered. Its light grew dimmer. For the first time in history, it seemed uncertain, and still, the boy hadn't even lifted a finger. Eli had not always felt important. On Earth, he was just another quiet boy in a small town where people rarely noticed strange minds. He lived in a modest home at the edge of the woods, with his parents, both former scientists who had left their work behind. They grew vegetables, collected rainwater, and taught their son to look closely at everything, from ant trails in the garden to the patterns stars made in the night sky. From a young age, Eli noticed things others missed. He remembered sounds perfectly. He could spot mistakes in books, pick out lies in news reports, and even solve puzzles before his teachers finished explaining the rules. But he didn't brag. He didn't need to. He was more interested in understanding than in showing off. His father gave him old electronics to take apart. His mother encouraged him to ask questions that had no easy answers. Every evening, the family sat together, not watching television, but reading ancient texts and solving riddles from long-lost languages. They treated learning like a game, and Eli became very good at it. One morning, when Eli was 11, a quiet visitor arrived at their door. She wore a dark gray suit and held a small silver tablet in her hand. She introduced herself simply as Commander Lena. Her tone was kind, but serious. She explained that Earth had received an invitation from the Galactic Council to send a representative to attempt a universal test, one that no species had passed. It wasn't a request. It was a challenge. Eli's parents didn't know what to say. They had worked in secret programs long ago and understood the danger such invitations could bring. But the commander had come for Eli, not them. She had watched his scores on global systems. His patterns had caught the attention of top minds. They wanted him to represent Earth. His mother looked at him and asked, "Do you want this?" Eli nodded, not because he was brave, but because he was curious. He left Earth the next day aboard a quiet diplomatic ship hidden beneath the clouds. The ship was small and silver, with soft lights and no windows. It flew silently, breaking through the atmosphere in minutes. Eli sat alone, watching stars appear beyond a clear dome above his head. He felt calm, not scared. He was finally where he belonged, among the stars he had studied from his backyard. On board, Commander Lena gave him access to old council records. She showed him reports from other species that had failed the same puzzle he would face. The files showed confusion, panic, and sometimes silence after the final attempt. Most species never spoke of the test again. Some vanished from political view. A few grew fearful of Earth's growing presence in the galaxy. Eli read every file slowly. He didn't rush. He asked questions no one else had asked before. Why were no solutions ever shared? Why does the council keep inviting new species? If no one passes, who built the device in the first place? The commander had no answers. She had only been told to bring Eli. But the boy wasn't worried. Instead, he noticed something strange. Every species had approached the test like a problem with a single answer. They had tried to win. No one had asked what the test meant. No one had asked why the test existed. By the time the ship landed on the Council's central planet, Eli had made a decision. He would not try to solve the puzzle. He would try to understand it. The city where the Council met was massive and glowing, filled with towers made of light and bridges that floated without support. Eli walked through grand halls filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some tall with glowing eyes, others short with floating limbs. He didn't stare. He observed. Many watched him. They saw only a child. Some laughed behind him. Others ignored him. A few frowned, unsure why Earth had sent someone so young. Inside the preparation chamber, Eli was given a seat alone. A smooth voice from a screen explained the rules again. You may interact with the cube. You may use your hands. You may speak aloud. You have 1 hour. If you leave early, the test ends. If the device shuts down, the session ends. There are no hints. He nodded. He spent the final hour before the test quietly listening. Not to people. To patterns. The way air moved. The way the building hummed. The timing of footsteps in the halls. It all became part of the puzzle. When he stepped into the chamber, bright, round, and silent, he didn't feel like a child anymore. He felt like a question walking into a room full of answers, too afraid to look back. As the device spun before him, shifting shapes and glowing faintly, Eli understood something deeper. This puzzle had been shown to hundreds, maybe thousands, but perhaps none had ever dared to stop playing by its rules. He wasn't here to follow. He was here to see, and what he saw changed everything. The chamber was completely silent as Eli stood before the strange spinning object. The puzzle hovered in the air, its surface changing every second. Each time it turned, its shape twisted into something new, sometimes smooth, sometimes sharp, always glowing with light that shifted from cool blue to deep red. Its patterns seemed alive, almost breathing. The boy didn't move. He just watched. Around the chamber, the Galactic Council sat in curved rows that formed a half circle. Representatives from distant planets, old empires, and ancient star systems leaned forward. Some wore heavy robes, others shimmered like light, but all of them had one thing in common. They were waiting to see this human fail. Eli studied the device with steady eyes. It looked like a cube at first, but it was more than that. It unfolded like petals of a flower, then folded back in ways that made no sense. There were markings on each side, symbols, colors, and strange numbers that didn't follow any known order. But Eli didn't panic. He didn't even seem confused. Instead, he seemed to grow more focused with each passing second. The lead counselor, whose face looked like polished glass, finally spoke. Its voice was translated into a soft tone through the air. You may begin. Time has started. Eli didn't react. He tilted his head, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. His hands stayed at his sides. The audience whispered. Some asked if the boy was frozen by fear. Others thought he was wasting time. One sharp-tongued alien muttered, "Humans are full of noise and pride. Now look at their champion, just standing there." But Eli was thinking. He saw that the cube didn't change at random. It responded. Every flicker of color, every shift in shape, followed a trigger. The changes reflected behavior. It reacted to movement. It responded to sound. It adapted when someone got too close or stayed too still. This wasn't just a puzzle. It was watching him. Eli took one slow step forward. The puzzle flickered red. He stopped. The red faded. He looked behind him, where Earth's envoy sat quietly, holding their breath. He looked at the council. Then he turned back to the floating device. "This puzzle," he said aloud, "is not asking for an answer." The words echoed across the room. It is testing reactions. It's looking for fear, hesitation, or obedience. Some council members shifted in their seats. No one had spoken like this before. No test subject had said these words. Most tried to solve the patterns. Some panicked. Others shouted. But this boy, he was different. Eli slowly walked around the cube, careful not to touch it. As he moved, the puzzle's surface glowed green, then orange, then pulsed with soft violet light. He nodded. It wants to learn from the solver, not to be solved itself. A few beings in the council exchanged looks. A tall, bird-like ambassador tapped its talon nervously. A jelly-bodied creature beside it stopped its usual swaying and grew still. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence as the boy from Earth refused to play by the rules. Eli sat cross-legged on the floor, still facing the puzzle. He closed his eyes. Now the room truly stilled. The puzzle dimmed. Its movement slowed. Symbols stopped flashing. It was confused. Counselor Branagh, who came from a species of star-forged giants, leaned toward his translator. "What is he doing?" The translator hesitated. "Meditating, it seems." "He's doing nothing?" "No," the translator replied. "He's thinking differently." Back in the center, Eli opened his eyes and looked straight at the device. "You're not a test," he said softly. "You're a mirror." The cube glowed again. This time gold. The markings on its surface rearranged. New shapes appeared, shapes no one had seen before. Slowly, silently, the cube unfolded like a flower blooming in reverse, revealing a core that pulsed with light as soft as moonlight. A beam of light extended from the center of the cube and hovered in front of Eli's face. It didn't harm him. It simply floated there, showing images that looked like data, ancient scripts, star maps, strange designs too old to trace. Gasps filled the hall. The puzzle had never reacted like this. Before, Eli didn't touch the beam. He simply said, "The real answer is not solving you. It's understanding your purpose." Suddenly, the cube spun fast, then froze. One by one, its lights turned off. It went dark. The silence in the chamber grew heavier. Then a sound came, soft, low, and strange. It was the sound of the puzzle powering down. The test had ended. Without a single move, without pressing a button or solving a pattern, the boy had made the device shut itself off. Eli stood and turned to face the council. "Did not come here to win a game. I came to ask what the game means." The words echoed again. The members of the council didn't know how to respond. For the first time in memory, the puzzle had reacted with respect, not to a warrior, not to a machine, but to a child from Earth, who dared to question its very nature. The chamber remained still after the puzzle's lights faded. Every eye focused on the boy standing calmly in the center of the room. Eli didn't look proud or afraid. His hands stayed at his sides. He didn't speak again. He had said enough. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then soft murmurs rose among the council members. Confused whispers turned into louder discussions. The sound grew until the chamber was filled with dozens of voices, each asking the same thing in different ways. What had just happened? Counselor Marek, A wide-eyed creature with skin like flowing water leaned forward and tapped a control panel. "Has the device ever powered down like that before?" it asked the technician nearby. "No," the technician answered, eyes wide. "Never. Not once." Across the curved rows, the reactions varied. Some representatives leaned closer to their monitors. Others stared at Eli as if seeing him for the first time. A few turned to each other, unsure what to say. One alien, with long silver limbs and a face shaped like a triangle, stood and asked, "Is this the solution?" No one could answer. The council's oldest member, Councilor Thava, slowly rose from her seat. Her voice was low, but carried across the entire hall. "The puzzle did not shut down because it was solved," she said. "It shut down because the boy refused to be its subject." Heads turned. A new kind of silence fell over the room, not the silence of confusion, but the silence that follows deep understanding. Eli remained quiet. He had nothing more to add. Councilor Thava continued, "For centuries, we have tested new species with this device. We believed the challenge would show strength or wisdom. But perhaps we were only measuring control." A ripple moved through the crowd. Councilor Varnex, whose people were known for their cold logic, stood next. "And what does that mean for us?" he asked. "Have we been looking at this all wrong?" On a large screen behind the boy, images from past tests began to appear. Scenes of other beings facing the same device. Some shouted, others wept. Many failed in silence. Eli watched those clips with calm eyes. He had already guessed this history. Now the council was seeing it for themselves. Councilor Brannock, the massive figure from a metal-rich planet, let out a sharp breath. "So, the puzzle is a tool of fear." "No," said Thava gently. "It is a mirror of intent." The words hung in the air. No one spoke after that. Finally, the speaker at the center of the council, a neutral voice controlled by artificial intelligence, spoke to Eli. "Your actions have changed the nature of this test. You did not attempt to win. You questioned its purpose. That choice has never been made before." Eli looked at the speaker and asked, "Why do you test in this way? What are you afraid of?" A few councilors flinched. The speaker paused, then answered, "Long ago, a powerful species designed the device to detect hidden threats. They feared rebellion. They feared clever minds that could not be controlled. The puzzle was made to expose defiance, not solve anything." Eli nodded slowly. It made sense now. The council had inherited the puzzle, but none had dared to challenge it. Until now. Councilor Thava turned toward her fellow members. "Then this child did not fail the test. He revealed its true purpose." There was a pause. Then, surprisingly, a soft cheer came from one side of the chamber. It started with a thin, glowing being whose world had once failed the test in shame. Others followed. More voices rose. Some clapped, others hummed, and a few gave short nods of respect. The room, once filled with judgment, now echoed with something new, approval. Still, not everyone joined. A smaller group of councilors remained, silent. Their eyes narrow, their expressions cold. One of them, Councilor Ilrix, stood and spoke sharply. "This changes nothing. Earth remains a young, unpredictable planet. We should not reward rebellion." Eli turned to look at him. "If asking questions is rebellion, then what is obedience without reason?" The councilor did not answer. He sat back down. The lead speaker paused again before announcing, "The puzzle test is now ended. The council will meet to decide what this means for Earth's standing." As Eli stepped away from the center, the floating cameras followed him. The hallway outside the chamber was empty. He walked alone, head high, steps steady. He didn't know what would happen next. But something had changed. Far beyond the Council, planet in Earth's orbit, the command ship received the news. Commander Lena stood beside a monitor, eyes wide with disbelief. She turned to her team and said, "He didn't just take the test, he changed it." In the days that followed, the Council held private meetings. Arguments filled long nights. Old beliefs were challenged. Some wanted the puzzle destroyed. Others wanted it studied again. But one truth stood above the rest. A boy from Earth had shown them their reflection, and many didn't like what they saw. And while they debated in silence, the stars whispered a new message. A human had asked the one question the galaxy had forgotten. Why? A day passed after the test ended. The puzzle remained silent, its once shifting surfaces now still. The Council had not made a final decision yet, but word had already spread across the stars. Something rare had happened. Something no one could easily explain. Inside Earth's diplomatic ship, Eli sat in a small room surrounded by soft light. There were no windows, only calm walls that changed color as the hours passed. He wasn't sleeping, he was drawing. A piece of paper rested on the table, filled with patterns, lines, and strange shapes. He wasn't trying to create art. He was remembering. Commander Lena watched from the doorway. Her face showed no emotion, but her mind was racing. She had seen world leaders freeze under pressure. She had watched generals make mistakes. But this boy, this quiet child, had faced a test designed to break the strongest minds in the galaxy. And he had not flinched. The ship's door opened. A message came from the Council. A decision would be shared within the next cycle. Until then, no one was allowed to leave orbit. Commander Lena nodded once, then turned back to Eli. "Do you know what's coming next?" she asked. Eli placed his pencil down. "They'll argue," he said. "Some will want to welcome Earth. Others will fear us more than before." "Why fear?" "Because they couldn't predict me." His words were simple, but the meaning behind them ran deep. The Council had expected strength, maybe cleverness. They hadn't expected someone who refused to play their game entirely. Elsewhere, deep within the Council chambers, the debate had turned fierce. Councillor Ilrix led a group demanding sanctions on Earth. "The boy exposed us," he shouted. "He proved we've been using fear as our foundation. That makes us look weak." But Councillor Thava responded calmly. He revealed the truth, yes, but not with anger, not with force. He simply saw what others didn't. Councillor Brannock added, "Earth did not send an army. They sent a child, a thinker. That should humble us." The conversation went on, planet after planet choosing sides. Some saw Eli as a danger. Others saw him as hope. A few feared what else Earth might be hiding. Back on the ship, Commander Lena called her team together. They met in a quiet room, faces tense. She spoke with care. Earth may be tested again, not with puzzles, but with threats. They will want to know if Eli is the only one like this. "Is he?" a young officer asked. Lena glanced toward the hallway where Eli sat alone. "No," she said. "He's just the first." At that moment, Eli stood up. He walked to the windowless wall and touched it gently. The surface changed, revealing a screen showing the Council city from orbit. Light sparkled across the dark side of the planet. Ships moved in perfect paths, but Eli was looking beyond the lights. "They want to control what they don't understand," he said, though no one had spoken to him. "But some things can't be boxed or silenced." Commander Lena joined him. "They don't know what Earth has become." "We were always this," Eli replied. "They just didn't notice." The Council continued their meetings late into the night. One proposal stood out: demand that Earth surrender all research connected to Eli's training. Another suggested Earth be monitored more closely. One even called for the puzzle to be destroyed entirely, to erase the embarrassment. But a quiet voice changed the course. It came from Counselor Velen, whose world had once been punished for failing the same test. He stood slowly and said, "We use the puzzle to measure others, but never to measure ourselves. Now a child has done that for us. Perhaps we should stop fearing new minds, and start learning from them." That sentence hung in the air like a signal flare. When the final decision was shared, it surprised many. Earth would be granted full observatory rights in the Council. The puzzle device would be retired. Eli's actions would be recorded in the Council's historical archive. No further tests would be required, for now. Back on the ship, Eli listened quietly as the message was read. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply nodded. "What will you do when we return home?" Lena asked. "I'll go back to learning," Eli said. "There's still so much to figure out." She smiled for the first time that day. "The galaxy just changed because of you." "No," Eli replied. "It changed because they saw something they couldn't control and didn't destroy it." As the ship prepared for departure, Earth's representatives stood taller. The stars outside no longer seemed distant or cold. A new understanding had taken root. Somewhere across the galaxy, in quiet rooms and hidden labs, others began to wonder. If one child from Earth could do this, how many more were out there? And the Council, though proud and ancient, had to accept one truth. Humanity's real power was not muscle or machines, but the minds that dared to question everything. The decision to recognize Earth spread quickly, but not everyone welcomed it. In many corners of the galaxy, powerful voices were angry. Some feared change, others felt insulted. A boy had uncovered something ancient and hidden, and now that truth was impossible to erase. On the fourth moon of Sorel, leaders from 8 outer worlds gathered. They had all failed the same puzzle in the past, and many had faced punishment or shame because of it. Now Earth had succeeded, not by solving it, but by challenging its reason for existing. To these leaders, that felt unfair. "This child made fools of us," one of them growled. "We played by the rules. He threw them away." "He didn't cheat," another replied. "He just saw things differently." But different can be dangerous. Their meeting ended without a clear plan, but one thought was shared by all. Earth was not to be underestimated again. Meanwhile, in a private chamber on the Council's homeworld, a secret group of high-ranking officials discussed their next steps. Counselor Ilrich sat at the head of the table, his tone cold and sharp. "Earth has made us look weak. What happens when their next child is even smarter? What happens when they no longer ask for permission?" A shadowy figure beside him responded, with a whisper. "Then we must stop them before that day comes." These words sparked quiet agreement. A decision was not made that day, but seeds of suspicion had been planted. Back on Earth's ship, Eli sensed the tension. He didn't have proof, but his instincts told him something had shifted. He noticed it in the way the Council sent fewer messages. He felt it in the silence that replaced the earlier applause. Praise had faded. Now came the watchful eyes. Commander Lena noticed it too. Her team received coded alerts from home. They were told to be careful with what they shared. Reports hinted that some planets had begun to question Earth's rise. Information was being collected. Stories were being twisted. Lena met with her crew in the lower deck. "We are no longer guests," she said. "We're under quiet investigation. Maybe more." Her officers looked uneasy. One asked, "Will they try to strike first?" "We don't know," she said. "But we must stay ahead." She turned to Eli, who sat near a display screen, reading data about alien cultures. "Do you feel unsafe?" He looked up. I feel watched. Eli had not asked for fame. He didn't enjoy the attention. He had only spoken the truth. But truth had power, and power made others nervous. That made him a target. On a faraway station, a military group from a jealous empire began testing new weapons. Their leaders believed Earth had unlocked secrets hidden in the puzzle. They feared Earth might one day rule, not just question. So, they prepared, not for defense, but for attack. At the same time, a group of peaceful scientists from another world sent a message to Earth. They asked to study with Eli, to learn from him. They had failed the test too, but after watching the broadcast, they realized they had misunderstood its purpose. They now saw the value in questioning old beliefs. Earth welcomed the request. Eli helped set up shared lessons across space, but even as knowledge flowed between friendly worlds, others grew more distant. Eli returned to his notes. He wrote about new questions. What else in the galaxy was accepted without reason? What other systems were never challenged? He believed the puzzle was just the beginning. One night, as the ship drifted above a gas giant, Eli sat alone in the observation room. Stars shimmered around him. The galaxy felt large, but he didn't feel small. He felt responsible. A quiet voice spoke behind him. "Commander Lena, they're preparing something," she said. "We've seen movement in fleets. Nothing official, but it's clear." Eli turned toward her. "Then we don't fight first. We stay curious. That's what they fear." She nodded. "But we stay ready." Later that day, Earth's leaders sent a message to the Council. It was calm and polite. It reminded them that Earth had not asked for power. Earth had answered a question, and Earth had done so without threats, violence, or demands. But in the background, Earth's defense systems quietly improved. Satellites were upgraded. Diplomatic teams were retrained. Scientists worked in hidden labs, not to build weapons, but to prepare minds like Eli's. In the Council, some members still believed in peace. They argued that Earth had brought new insight, not danger. Others began forming secret alliances. Some prepared sanctions. Others built walls of silence. Eli knew that not everyone feared humans. Some simply didn't understand them. But misunderstanding often leads to conflict. As Earth's ship prepared to return home, a final message came from a neutral world. It read, "Your mind opened a door. Not all want it open. Be careful, young one." Eli read the message and smiled faintly. He didn't fear the future. He respected it. The galaxy had changed, and the next move wasn't Earth's to make. Eli stood at the ship's wide viewing window as Earth's green and blue surface came into view. The planet turned slowly below them, covered in clouds and glowing softly in the distance. Home looked peaceful, but Eli knew the universe around it had become less quiet. The journey back had been smooth, but the air inside the ship was tense. Commander Lena had received more secret messages, updates from allies, alerts from intelligence groups, and one short warning from a distant station. The Council is splitting. Inside the Galactic Council, unity had started to fall apart. After Eli's act, long-hidden cracks in their trust began to grow. Smaller worlds no longer followed every order. New voices challenged the older ones. Some counselors called for change. Others wanted to return to strict control. But no one could undo what had been revealed. Counselor Thava spoke often now, reminding others of what the boy had shown them. He held no weapon. He broke no law. He only asked a question. And it shook us. Her speeches spread quickly through the stars. Students, workers, and thinkers across planets began asking their own questions. Why were tests never explained? Why was silence often rewarded more than truth? The puzzle had become a symbol, and not the one the council wanted. Eli did not watch the debates. He returned to his studies. At home, he walked the same paths through the woods behind his house. He sat under trees with old books and quiet thoughts. People asked to speak with him, scientists, reporters, leaders, but he refused interviews. He said little. He only asked for time to think. Earth's leaders met in private, far from cameras or news. They spoke about what Eli had done and what might come next. One advisor asked, "How do we protect someone the galaxy sees as dangerous?" Even when he hasn't hurt anyone, the answer was simple. We protect him by protecting his ideas. A global network was formed to support young thinkers. New programs encouraged questions, not just answers. Schools taught students to look deeper, not just memorize facts. Eli's story was not told as a tale of power, but of patience, vision, and calm resistance. In the meantime, other species began to visit Earth. Some came in peace, offering knowledge and seeking learning. Others came to test, watching carefully, searching for weakness. Earth remained open but alert. Diplomats learned fast. Scientists shared only what was safe. The planet stayed kind, but careful. Then something unexpected happened. A message arrived from the council. It was short and formal. Eli is invited to return. The council requests his presence for a final discussion. Earth's leaders debated for days. Some feared a trap. Others saw it as a chance to bring peace. Eli listened silently. Then he spoke, voice steady. "If I go, I don't go alone." When the transport ship launched, it carried not just Eli, but a small team of Earth's finest minds, mathematicians, philosophers, historians, and artists. The council had called for one voice. Earth answered with many. As the ship landed in the council's capital, the city felt different. There were fewer guards. The halls were quieter. The usual pride in the air had softened. Inside the main chamber, all seats were filled. Every counselor was present. The atmosphere was not hostile. It was uncertain. Eli stepped forward. He did not bow. He did not smile. He simply looked ahead and waited. Counselor Branagh, who once doubted Earth, now stood to speak. "You changed how we see the test," he said. "And more than that, you changed how we see each other." Counselor Ilrix did not speak. His silence said enough. Thava approached slowly. She carried something wrapped in gold cloth. When she reached Eli, she unwrapped it. Inside was the puzzle. It no longer glowed. It no longer moved. "We retired it," she said. "But we think it belongs to you now." Eli accepted the device without a word. He didn't turn it on. He held it gently and stepped back. Then Earth's delegation stood. A woman named Mara spoke next. "We don't seek control. We seek connection. If the Council wants to build trust, it must begin by sharing its history, not hiding it." There was a pause. Then, one by one, counselors stood and agreed. A vote was called. The results shocked the galaxy. The Council would open its archives. Ancient records would be made public. All tests would be reviewed. Earth would become a full member, with equal voice and rights, and the test that had lasted thousands of years would never be used again. Eli's role was never mentioned as power. It was remembered as clarity. After the meeting ended, he left without a speech. Back on Earth, life returned to quiet. The sky looked the same, but something had changed forever. A boy had once walked into a room filled with rules, and by refusing to play their game, he helped reshape the galaxy. And the puzzle, now silent, sat in a simple wooden box, no longer a test, but a memory.